Welcome to today's podcast episode of Little by Little Homeschool. I am joined by Kelsee Moore from Moore & Co. She's also known as the Crunchy Strength Coach. Thanks for being here today, Kelsee.
Thanks for having me.
So let's first start off. I'm familiar with you. You know how Instagram is. You feel like you know people. So I feel like I know you to an extent, obviously. But the listener might not know who you are. So can you share a little bit about yourself?
Would love to. Thank you for having me. Well, I grew up in California. I played sports all of my life. I went to run track and field at Liberty University, which brought me across the country to Virginia. I met my husband in the Army ROTC department. So we both did Army ROTC. We commissioned out of Army ROTC into the military. My husband went active duty and I commissioned into the Army Reserves. I actually got out last week, so I am 100% completely done with my military time. Best thing I've ever experienced, and also very glad to be done. So happy about that. But throughout that process, I chose the reserves mainly so that I could go and coach. And so I've been a strength coach now for 9 or 10 years-ish. I've worked in collegiate settings, and I'm currently still working for the Air Force. So I work full-time as a strength conditioning coach on a human performance team. And we obviously work with some of the most elite airmen the United States military has to offer, and it's an incredible experience to work with them and work for them. But, you know, a big pivot point of my life is in 2019, I experienced negative side effects to taking hormonal birth control. And so that's kind of when my professional and personal lives collided. Researching a lot of female topics. I started researching a lot of holistic, crunchy topics, and that's kind of just led me to where I am today, the self-acclaimed crunchy strength coach, but I love blending two worlds, and it's a blast.
Well, I also love that you blend your faith into all that. And I think that's, for me, a really big thing. And that's a focus. That's kind of like what drew me to you. I was like, this is just something a little bit different. So I appreciate that you have this such amazing knowledge about the body, but then you're also focused on women and also faith and tying that in. So I appreciate that. So we know now as homeschool moms, if you've spent any bit of time on social media, you've come across the topic of strength training. And we know in the health industry and fitness, like fads come and go. Is strength training, is it a fad or not? And if it's not a fad, why should it be a priority for us moms?
Well, it's certainly gaining steam. And so I wouldn't necessarily call it a fad, but I would definitely call it something that is currently trending, but I find to be very positive. I think it's something that women of all ages should focus on, starting from being a young girl all the way through, your aging years. It's incredibly important. And obviously a lot of women know about strength training now through big social media accounts, which is amazing, but a lot of women get stuck with how to start. And so what that typically looks like is it's obviously lifting weights, it's resistance training, so you're having to overcome a load, but your body, because we have that faith type of view, we understand that our bodies are made with a perfect design. And so within that design, we understand that we have a system called progressive overload. And so if we use that to our advantage, why strength training is so important is because it gives us an appropriate amount of stimulus, and then we can overcome and progress over time. So obviously if you lift 5 pounds over time, your muscles will adapt to that. And then you will be able to lift 10 pounds. And that's the idea. And so you become more resilient, not only in physique and not only in your bones and in your muscles, but also there is something about building endorphins and building confidence and having a really strong appearance that really helps us long term.
I agree with all those things. So my personal journey is, I grew up 80s, 90s, it's just totally all cardio kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And the diet culture, I know I've spoken about this already on the podcast a little bit. The diet culture just was like, just do more cardio and eat less, or eat all the fat-free foods, right, that are full of all kinds of other junks. And that's kind of where my mentality was. And I guess maybe hit perimenopause or so, mid-40s, and things just really slowed down. And that's when I found strength training. And so when you're talking about progressive overload, like that was a term I had never heard of. And those benefits that you're giving, totally. And you start off with the 5-pound weights and, they're hard. And then you move up to the 10 and it really does. It has reframed a lot of my mind. I feel like I'm more clear in my thinking. I do feel more confident and was able then to this, unfortunately, like 25 pounds that I put on in a year or two, was able to take that off by that. And also diet, being strategic in that and everything. But I agree. And I'm hooked. It's not always fun. Like the days of, I'm like, oh, I got to do this. But I'm always so glad. Like, when does anybody regret a workout afterwards? You never regret doing it, right?
Exactly. There's no downfall to it. Absolutely no downfall. You can absolutely tell, even when speaking with women who have strength trained for a long time, they have such a different outlook on exercise. It's not the cardio bunny. It's not the punish yourself. It really is like, I am going to challenge myself. I'm going to have goals. I'm going to have goals that don't have anything to do with my physique. I have goals that don't have anything to do with the scale. Strength training has been proven to have 26 different types of benefits where you no longer need a prescription medication. From a safety perspective, I think moms need to be strong to protect and provide for their children. I just had a perfect example. It's, last week, unfortunately, I had a friend who had an incident in her garage with her children, and she was able to pick up a refrigerator because she had strong legs. And so it's not out of fear, but it's out of playing offense in life and not necessarily just defense. And so I'm pro, going back to your original question, I am very pro strength training, lots of holistic benefits, even outside of just being maybe a current trend.
Yeah, I think it's easy to find out answers and find direction and I know you have programs and ways of helping women. We'll get into that. But it's much easier now with the internet. We can downplay and like poo-poo the internet and social media, but there are some benefits and we can focus on that, and that's really helpful. But there are moms out there who are saying, well, I don't have time for that right now. What are your suggestions for the homeschool moms to make it actually a priority for them and fit it into their day because their kids are home with them every day?
Absolutely. I think the first thing that moms need to get out of their head is that strength training or exercise in general, I do not consider me time. And what that means is it is not carved out time where you're by yourself and you are just worshiping self. That is not what I believe about exercise. Because I do think that leans more towards on the idealistic and also the idolatry aspect of the fitness industry that is obviously within the secular world. So having a Christian perspective on exercise, then I say, let's take it as it's an incredible opportunity to bring your children and teach them and exercise with them and teach them how strong they are and teach them new skills and coordination and agility and play and imagination in settings that maybe homeschool moms aren't as comfortable in. Homeschool moms are really great at teaching at the table, teaching maybe out in nature or teaching out at a farm and so what I say is, hey, if you're taking on that teaching role and you're having to stretch yourself to teach your children all of these subjects that you may be uncomfortable with, then why not put you in a gym? Why not put you in your home gym? Why not, let's not even go that dramatic. Why not just bring some dumbbells or bands into your living room, at the very least, put on a YouTube video and have your kids jump around and follow with you and be able to teach them, wow, what I'm doing is building strong legs. How amazing is it that God gave me strong legs? It's almost like a sense, and I'm not here to sound heretical, but it almost feels like a sense of like putting on the armor of God. Like you're able to teach your children how strong and capable they are and how that stewardship plays into it, rather than, again, the fitness industry saying like, do this for your physique goals or do this because it's your time. And so what I say, again, specifically for homeschool moms is, I know everybody is low on time, but it's always about how can you be resourceful. If you have a mindset of resourcefulness, you will get it done. 1,000% you will get it done. I have a very good friend. I have two very good friends who homeschool 4 children each, who run very big online social media platforms, and they are strength training out of their living rooms, and they are in my workout programs. So I think that it's all about framing. It's all about having that learning mindset. It's having the ability to grow and adapt and learn about strength training as a skill, so that you can make the appropriate changes based on your needs, your resources, your age, your ability, your skills. And it's just being flexible and not necessarily just being extremely rigid with it.
What I try to think about is, I guess I would say for a mom that is like, I don't think I have any time, maybe turn on your screen time on your phone and take a look at how much time, right? Did you spend 30 minutes scrolling on Instagram or playing some games? You could replace that with the strength training, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely, and I'm going through another certification right now, and I was just reading this morning, that the path to get a client to be able to do something consistently is you have to give them two choices. The choice is to have them sit down and write out and like what they're learning from it, or to take a 5-minute action. And so what I really love from that perspective is if you can get a very busy individual with a very packed schedule and get her to take a 5-minute action, most likely she will then continue down that action, but with the caveat of saying, hey, you only need to do 5 minutes, just do 5 minutes, but at least gets them in that direction. And so what that can look like is your kids are doing their math work and you have some dumbbells in the living room right next to them, and you're doing your squats, you're doing your elevated push-ups, you're doing your Romanian deadlifts, whatever you're doing, right? But set that timer. Say, hey, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes. I'm going to trust myself with this 5 minutes. I'm going to build this habit with this 5 minutes. And then again, over time, you develop a skill, you develop a love, you develop a curiosity for strength training, and then you can progress from there.
That's even more doable, 5 minutes. And
5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's the power of 5 minutes. It really is. It's like, let's say your kitchen is completely obliterated. There's dishes everywhere, there's food everywhere, but there's something about setting a timer. This is what I do. You set a timer on your microwave or you set a timer on your oven, and you're saying, I'm going to clean as much as I can for 10 minutes. And then at the 10-minute mark, I'm done. For some reason, that gives you the freedom through a structured set of time. And so that's a very easy example that you could use for strength training. Hey, set a timer for 10 minutes. I'm going to work for 10 minutes. But then it gives you the freedom to let it go after that 10 minutes. And so that feels so much more doable, achievable to the average busy woman.
And we don't all need fancy equipment. I mean, I look at stuff that people use online. I'm like, oh, that would be so great. But currently, you and I are recording. I am in a corner of my bedroom. And on the other corner of my bedroom is my gym, my home gym. Mm-hmm. It's just dumbbells. And I started off with just 2.5 pound and 5 pound dumbbells. And I tell people, just look on Facebook Marketplace. There's always people that are wanting to sell what they have. And grab a couple of those and you can slowly add on. But yeah, just in the living room, somewhere near where the kids are, and being able to just 5-10 minutes. And you're right about like the power cleanup or something. I do that too. I'm like,
totally.
No distractions. Don't look at the phone. Don't, nothing. And it's amazing what you can get done when you know that you only have 5-10 minutes to do it.
Absolutely. And the investment on strength training can be as little as $0 because you can do just body weight exercises. That absolutely is better than nothing. And then when you can invest in something, you can go invest in very small dumbbells and go from there. As you get stronger, you can invest in more weights. But even then, I know these homeschool moms are probably living on probably some land. Some of them. I know this population. So where, pick up some outside objects, pick up a sandbag. Tried and true option is a 50-pound bag of play sand from Home Depot is $3.50. And so that is up to 50 pounds of weight that you can put in Ziploc bags into a backpack. You do not have to invest in a weight vest. You can use bags that you currently already own. It's all about the mindset of resourcefulness. So I hope that's helpful.
No, that's like some scrappy resourcefulness. We like that here in the
yes,
world.
Good.
So I do know that you work with people of all different athletic abilities, from maybe beginners to training elite military members. Could you offer a piece of advice to a mom who maybe one mom is finding herself at the beginning of her strength training, and then maybe a piece of advice for the mom who's maybe a year or more into it and wondering how does she keep showing up and strengthening her body?
It's a wonderful question. For the absolute beginner, I would say the exact advice that I just gave was have the mindset of learning strength conditioning as a skill, meaning you're not going to be the best seamstress at the very first shot. You're not going to be the best sourdough baker. You're not going to be the best fermenter. You're not going to be the best XYZ. And so if you can relieve yourself of that pressure, of that subjective pressure of needing it to be perfect, and we can just look at it as a piece of stewardship in our life, then you would not believe the things that you can accomplish. It's quite amazing. And so that's the first thing I would say. And then from a practical standpoint, I would say dive into a program. My program that I offer is $35 a month. To some people, it seems expensive. To some people, it seems very cheap. And so you can kind of gauge yourself off of that, but there's, from a free standpoint, plenty of things online that you can follow for free. I've been able to put out a lot of free content on my website and on my Instagram. So screenshot things, save them, just do them consistently before you're ready to invest in a monthly membership. And then for the woman who's been about a year in, I would say make an actual goal, like maybe an athletic goal. And that's not a physique goal, that's not a weight goal, but I would say find an athletic goal that can continue to challenge you in the gym. That could be something like running a really good 5K, or maybe something larger, maybe a half marathon. That could be joining an actual gym rather than just lifting at home. That could be joining, a weightlifting competition, if that suits you better, or a high rocks, or, there's endless options, truly endless options. But I would say make some goals so that you can have a really structured plan getting to that goal. So that keeps your focus off of scale. It keeps your focus off of the front of the Women's Health magazine that is unrealistic and tweaked and fake, right? It keeps your mind out of just like Satan coming after it, telling you that, you've done all this work and what for, right? It keeps you really centered on just being your strongest, most capable self. And so that's what I would give the woman who's about a year in.
That's perfect. Perfect. Let's go back and talk about the kids a bit more, because we're homeschooling. Okay. So it's never too late. We've established that. Anybody can begin at any age. I started at, I guess, maybe 47 or so. So if I can do it then, after not ever lifting up and even, any dumbbells or nothing, that anybody can do it. But we have our children, we have them watching us, and we know that we have great influence upon them. So how can we include and inspire them to take care of their bodies, and what does that look like for children? But also as teens, if there's a mom that's maybe starting a little bit later and she has teens, how can we inspire them, bring them along, and encourage them?
Absolutely. I love that. The question is already posed as the stewardship. It's already posed in the right direction, and I love it. And I would say homeschool moms are obviously taking a hold and taking back the responsibility for their children's education. So they're already on the forefront of this. But what I would say is that for young kids, it's all about free play. And most of the time, homeschool kids are pretty good about free play because they don't have structured recess. They don't have structured sports necessarily. They can, but they not always guaranteed. Not structured PE unless they purposely do that. And so what I would say is if your kid is not doing free play or not in some type of homeschooled PE situation, then I would say if it's not you, then get with other moms or maybe start researching ways that you can get your children active. And it could be things like playing hopscotch, jumping rope, I call them kind of like primal movements, bear crawling and crab walking and starfishing and jumping jacks, right? So it's just getting them to understand where their bodies are in space creates the best neurological to muscular connection and communication. And so that is the pathway that we are creating with a young child is, the phrase movement builds the brain is very true. The movement patterns that you build in a child absolutely set up their athletic foundation. And even if your children don't go on to be athletic stars, it still, helps them be a balanced human being physically as they get older. And so anything unweighted, anything that is play, anything that is fun and inspires teamwork and good sportsmanship is always the best for young kids. And then as children are getting into the ages of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you can start loading them, but with very small dumbbells, or maybe even start with bands, because the body is still progressively overloading. And what that means is, a child doesn't necessarily have the recovery responses like an adult does. First example being testosterone, right? Testosterone is an anabolic steroid. Estrogen and progesterone are anabolic steroids, meaning they want to rebuild and repair. Children do not have that. And so what I would say is limit the repetitions, but always focus on form and technique, and always using the language of you're strong, you're capable, you're proud. That type of language shapes a child in tremendous ways. Obviously, both gender inclusive as well. I think a lot of times we use a lot of those words for our young sons, but maybe not for our young daughters. But I think it's so important to tell our young girls, man, you are so strong. Look at those muscles that God gave you. That's amazing. That means that we can do more things. We can serve more people. We can love more people through our bodies. And that's incredible. And then with teenagers, that is when really the child starts to kind of split. The male child, the female child really start to split, because as a young boy, once testosterone starts peaking, that's obviously going to be his anabolic hormone, meaning that his muscles are going to rebuild and repair very quickly. And young boys absolutely should be strength training. And most of the time that is the age where they become more interested in strength training anyways. So if they're not getting it from a schooling perspective because they are in a different school and not necessarily at home, then that kind of checks the box. But if they're not, then I would say, your son absolutely could be strength training. And then with the young girls, it's still kind of, teenage girls, it's very similar to when kids are young, meaning that teenage girls do not have the testosterone. However, they improve through improved neurological changes, meaning that keeping high coordination and skill and agility and new movement patterns and new exercises in the mix is very helpful for the progression of young girl teenagers, more specifically. Where boys, they can kind of catch on to that pretty quick. And I think we naturally see that, boys typically, in regards to sports, become faster, stronger, bigger, quicker than most girls do, in regards to, how they're developing. So for young girls, just keep it simple. Keep the coordination, keep the strength training, keep the new movements, and I think it's great.
No, this is really good. I'm like soaking this all up. I'm like, okay, yes. And the boy thing, I totally agree. So my boys are 17 and 20, and they love it. And it wasn't anything that they picked up from my husband or I. Now, when it comes to naturally athletic people, my husband and I are not. Like, you throw a ball at me, I'm like running the other way. It's just I'm not interested. But I will tell you that strength training has also increased my, I wouldn't be as scared. I feel like my coordination is better. I could probably catch the ball at this point. And my flexibility, there's just so many things that are beneficial. And if it's beneficial for us, it can be beneficial for them. But that's so interesting about the testosterone for the males and then the recovery. That's okay. Yeah. I have seen Instagram reels and it's like, oh, to a mom, congratulations to me. I've been lifting for 5 years. I can now, lift the same amount as a 13-year-old boy that's never been in the gym. They just have this strength, right? That they don't, and that they can easily build, right?
Absolutely. And, as Christians, we understand God's perfect design. And so that's not a knock on women whatsoever. But once we have this understanding that men's bodies primitively, through God's design, are meant to work and have high work output, high work capacity. We see it in how their metabolism works. We see it in their response to stress, physiologically, not mentally or emotionally. I mean, truly, objectively, physiologically, how men respond to stress, under eating, under sleeping. Men respond well. They thrive. They do well. Our economy is built on the backs of young men. It truly is. And so once we understand that, we can kind of, praise that. That's amazing. But for women, our nutrients support internal energy. And so once we understand that overstress, overcomplications, under eating, like you had mentioned before, undersleeping, that is just a whirlwind for not great recovery and not adapting to our strength training very well. And so that kind of cues, obviously, the next maybe topic of just this is all with the assumption that women are, eating real food, eating enough, sleeping enough, generally sleeping enough. I know moms aren't always sleeping enough, but with the general idea of we're working towards that, we can start incorporating the appropriate amount of strength training according to where our recovery level's at.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to just acknowledge that there is a difference, and it's great. It's the way God has made them to be. And I will put a plug for young women doing some strength training. The cool thing is that with me starting this, my daughter kind of started, even though at that time when I first started, she wasn't living at home, and so it's caught on. And so when she gets home, now she's living back at home. And so when she gets home from work a couple days a week, she'll come over to my little home gym and she'll do things, and it's increased her strength. She's now going to run her first 5K, and she feels stronger because of those things. And I'm just excited. Even though I look back at myself, I'm like, oh, I missed so many years of doing this. I'm able to hopefully inspire and encourage her as she, begins her journey someday of being a mom. We're not there yet, but
yeah. No, it's incredible. It really is incredible, and I love that you did that with her.
Yeah, so and it's also is a focus on strength and how can we serve God and serve others better when we are healthy, when we're feeling strong, and our bodies physically and emotionally, mentally. But this has been so good. I know I could talk to you, forever about this stuff. I love this kind of stuff. But where can they connect from you? Where can they learn more from you? And can you share a little bit about the program that you offer?
Absolutely. So I'm definitely the most active on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Crunchy Strength Coach, exactly how it sounds. My website is heyomoreandco.com. So HEYYOMOOREANDCO. heyomoreandco.com. But I offer the Crunchy Athlete Workout Membership Program. And so, like I said before, it's $35 a month. And the wonderful thing about it is that I have 3 different options for you every single day. So I call it the minimal program, the barbell program, and then the cardio program. And the minimal program is exactly how it sounds. It's minimal in time, in resources, and in skill. And so that is the classic beginner homeschooler, perfect one. And then if you're a little bit more intermediate, once you get more comfortable, you want to start using a barbell, you have a little bit more equipment and resources, you can hop onto the barbell program. Everything is there anyways. You can bop back and forth if you need. Or let's say you're traveling, you're in a hotel, you have different changing equipment, you can always bop to a different one. And then I also give cardio, some cardio pieces on there because women like to train for things and like to train for 5Ks. And I put that in conjunction with all of that on there. And then we have monthly Zoom calls on our membership, and that's fun. And that's your chance to use me as your coach. And that's been great. You mentioned my last month, I had Joel Salatin on as a guest, which was just amazing. We talked about his book. And then, over time, the branding, the social media, everything is always adapting. I'm always having ideas, for ebooks and programs and courses. So I'm sure I will adapt over time, but, that's currently what I offer. And I love it. It's been fun.
Perfect. I love that you are following God's lead in how you can serve women and moms, especially here within this group. And thank you for offering all those different programs. I will put all the links to your website, Instagram, and all the stuff in the show notes. So I would encourage a listener to go over and check out Kelsee, connect with her, go follow her on Instagram as well. Because like you said earlier, you just share so much information there. And I'm not naturally a science reading all this stuff, but like you digest it in a way. I'm like, oh, that just makes so much more sense. And it actually leaves me more in awe of the way that God has created our bodies.
That's always my goal. Through a strange way, I'm able to continue to remind people, like, through science, we are pointed back to God's beautiful design. And I hope that I can continue to do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.